What's up, everybody? This is Alex Christoforou with the Duran. I'm here with Angela Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran, and today we're going to be taking a look at the elections in Bavaria, Germany. All right, Alexander, we had the results from the elections in Bavaria. Things did not go well for Merkel. Basically, any party that seems to be associated with Merkel, whether it's her own or any party that's in her coalition, is just getting shellacked. I mean, they're just getting crushed, either by the Green Party, by the AfD. She's not getting the support or the mandate from the people. I think that's pretty obvious. Go over what the significance of the elections in Bavaria, or what does it mean? What does it mean for Merkel? What does it mean for the coalition?
Right. Well, let's first of all look at these results. The Christian Social Union has been the dominant party in Bavaria since the Second World War. It is Angela Merkel's coalition partner. As you absolutely rightly say, it is an ally of Angela Merkel. Its vote collapsed from 47% of the vote to 36%. A crushing fall. Even more crushing was the vote for the SPD, the Socialist Democratic Party of Germany, which is Angela Merkel's other coalition partner. Its vote more than halved. It fell from over 20% to just 9.5% of the vote. These are catastrophic results. And what they show is exactly what you say. Any party that is now in coalition with Angela Merkel is going to see its vote disintegrate. And this is consistent with the opinion polling across Germany for the state of the coalition. It turns out that the aggregate vote of the Christian Democratic Party and the Christian Social Union is now just 26%, according to the latest opinion polls. That is a historic low for parties that have usually won together around 40 to 45% or even more of the vote across Germany. And of the Social Democratic Party, it's fallen to just 15%. Catastrophic for a party that has often formed the government of Germany and which historically has never polled below 40% and normally also polled around 40 to 45% of the vote. So what it shows is that Angela Merkel is becoming toxic. She is going down, and she's bringing down with her all the parties and all the political leaders which are aligned with her. Now, we did a video about Angela Merkel a short time ago, in which you asked me how long she's got, and I said, well, maybe she would be gone around the new year. I think the result in Bavaria increases the prospect of that, because though there are some people in Germany and elsewhere who are disputing this, because as they rightly say, the leadership of the Christian Social Union has expressed doubts about Merkel, and they're saying that the weakening of the Christian Social Union in some mysterious way somehow strengthens Merkel. I have to say that the polling figures are now so bad that it can only be a matter of time now before even Angela Merkel's own party, the Christian Democratic Party of Germany, accepts that she has become so toxic that she has to be removed as German Chancellor, or she will bring down the entire German political establishment, which has run Germany since the formation of the Federal Republic of Germany after the Second World War, down with her. So we have seen a further huge step towards the end of Angela Merkel's time as Germany's Chancellor and as the leader of Germany and as the de facto leader of Europe.
What were some of the reasons for the poor showing policy-wise? Alexander, why in Bavaria did people deliver such a stunning blow to the CSU and to Merkel's coalition?
Right. Well, let's actually let's unpack the voting a little bit further, because I think if you do that, you get closer to the answer to that question. The CSU is a right-wing party. It's always aligned itself as further to the right than the pan-German CDU. It's always been the more conservative of these two parties, the CDU and the CSU, which consider themselves sister parties. Its vote, as I said, fell from 46% to 36%. The party that rose out of nowhere, because it never contested elections in Germany before, is the even more conservative right-wing AfD party, the Alternative für Deutschland, which came from 0 to just over 10%. Now, there have been people who are denying this, but the facts are obvious. They speak for themselves. The CSU party is losing votes to the AfD. If we look at the other coalition partner, Merkel's other coalition partner, the SPD, it fell from just over 20% of the vote to less than 10% of the vote. In other words, its vote more than halved. Where did that vote go? We see the Green Party, a party that in Germany is often thought of as being further to the left than the SPD. It increased its vote from 8% to 18%. In other words, all those voters who left the SPD switched to the Greens. Angela Merkel has been running Germany from the centre. She is refusing to make any fundamental shifts, either to the left or to the right. She has been blind to the concerns many Germans have about immigration. She has been blind to the concerns many Germans have about the increasing failure of Germany's welfare programs. And what is happening is that the votes of the coalition are now bleeding off either to the right, if it's the CDU or the CSU, or to the left, if it is the SPD. We are seeing the collapse of Germany's centre.
How much of a role is immigration playing on this, and Merkel's decision to open up the borders and just let millions of migrants into Germany? Is that a factor, or is this more domestic welfare, like you said, welfare issues, employment, stuff like that?
I think it is a huge factor. First of all, it was the moment when her position in Germany visibly began to slip. There were already some doubts about what she was doing beforehand, but it was the catalyst. It made people understand, finally, what a completely unimaginative and unresponsive leader she has become. So it galvanized the votes of the more right-wing voters to switch to the AfD, which came out of nowhere and is now rapidly establishing itself as a powerful party all across Germany. As I said before, it's important to stress this. It hadn't had no presence in Bavaria whatsoever. In this first election, it has zoomed up to 4th place, and all the indications are that it is still growing in Bavaria. At the same time, immigration has galvanized other voters who are perhaps left-wing voters and are saying to themselves, hold on, Angela Merkel doesn't really care about us. She cares more about migrants than she does about us. We're having a really hard time in Germany because all these reforms that were introduced about a decade ago, which are supposed to have made Germany more competitive, have resulted in social welfare programs for poorer Germans being cut back very radically. So it has radicalized those voters also, And they are also switching to the left. So if you want me to say, I think immigration was the absolute trigger that set this going. But the important thing, the result in Bavaria now shows that it is now even transcending that question. People are doubting everything that Merkel is doing. And increasingly, these elections right across Germany, in Bavaria and elsewhere, are becoming votes about her, and she is losing in every place.
We've stated on many past videos that Merkel seems to always survive these difficult elections and these mandates, which show that many people in Germany don't want her, but she seems to always survive and always stay in the Chancellor's seat. What do you think her next moves are going to be? Will she continue to be defiant and defy the public mandate, which appears to be Merkel, get out? Or will she finally concede and say, you know what, and go to her coalition and say, I think my time is running out. We need to get a successor in, and I'm going to step aside in a very orderly and peaceful manner.
I think Merkel had the option to do that after the elections in Germany, the parliamentary elections last year. And I half expected her to do it, actually, because it was already clear after those elections that public support for her was draining away in Germany. However, she decided to stick it out. She has always relished the post of being Chancellor of Germany, and she seems incredibly unwilling to give it up. However, we mustn't just look at Merkel herself here. The greater failure is that of Germany's political establishment. The CDU had the option after the election of asking Merkel to go and to step down as leader. They didn't do it. The SPD said that it would not go into coalition with her after the election last year. What did it do? It went into coalition with her. All these people have been propping her up, and they are increasingly now paying the price of that. The question is, how much longer are they going to go on propping her up and disregarding the price they are paying? Or will they finally decide that the position is now so bad that they just cannot go on doing it for any longer? At some point, there has to be a break. It really begs the question of how this extraordinarily unempathic, unimaginative political class that Germany seems to be landed with is going to persist with a support for a chancellor that the German people increasingly are saying they don't want.
Alexander, you mentioned that the rising party is the AfD, and they seem to be the ones that are eating away at Merkel's coalition, and they're eating away at it very quickly. Is the AfD party, is it for real, or is it just a I don't want to say a trend, part of the reaction to Merkel's migrant policy, and once that gets sorted out, the AfD will just start to disintegrate? Is this a real party?
Right. First of all, I think it's a work in progress. I mean, when it started, it was basically a sort of discussion club put together by a group of professors who didn't like some things about Germany's foreign policy. They thought it was too Atlanticist, and they wanted a more Bismarckian policy, which would lead to better relations with Russia. And they also were very critical of the euro, which they thought was not good for Germany or for Europe. Then, as I said, the migrant crisis erupted, and all sorts of people joined the AfD, and it moved rather further to the right than some of its original founders had intended, and it was somewhat incoherent. My own view is that over time the AfD will crystallize. In fact, it is crystallizing rapidly into a coherent party. There are still some rather discordant voices in it, some people who say some, very strange and sometimes frankly bizarre and even obnoxious things. But I think over time it will crystallize, and I think it is not surprising that it should, because one of the realities about German politics for a very long time, since the Second World War, is because of the shock of the Nazi period and of the Second World War, German politics have been very abnormal. It's been very difficult in Germany to be patriotic and right-wing in a way that is completely natural in most other countries. So a party in Germany that is both those things is a sign of Germany becoming a more normal country again and a more sovereign country again, and perhaps it's only to be expected, and it explains why it has a future. Now, can I just say something else about the AfD? It is because the AfD is becoming stronger that you are also seeing a countervailing, a counterbalancing rise of people on the left. Because, of course, left-wing parties, and I stress, it's problematic how left-wing the Green Party is, but it is positioned outside the coalition and away from the SPD. The Green Party is perceived in Germany as pretty left-wing. And what you're beginning to see is a move in Germany towards a perhaps more conventional political balance, in which instead of having government perpetually from the centre, with everybody basically agreeing about everybody, we're seeing a more natural and more logical evolution towards a more straightforward and more conventional left-right balance. And the AfD seems very well positioned to evolve into that right-wing balance. So to answer your question, I think it is more than a movement, not quite a party, but the AfD will be a party before very long.
What do you think is going through the minds of the EU technocrats and bureaucrats, the Junckers and the Tusks, after these results? And do you think this emboldens those leaders who are resisting EU rule, i.e. Orban, Salvini, these guys?
Right. I think the EU establishment is absolutely horrified at these results, as they've been horrified by most of the election results they've seen across Europe in the last couple of years. The only one they were pleased with was the victory of Macron in France, which was only achieved, I should stress, after extreme political manipulation. I think that for them, that is to say for the EU establishment, Merkel is their de facto leader. She is also the person who ideologically represents their project. And I think they are very frightened of seeing her go. And I think it is precisely because they need her to stay to keep the project on the road. That is one of the reasons why, in spite of support draining away from her, she is still there. Because, of course, they also have their supporters in Germany within the sort of technocratic and elite and the political establishment there. So, the people, the EU technocrats in Brussels and Frankfurt and elsewhere join up with the people in Berlin to try to keep the Angela Merkel show on the road for as long as they can. But as I said, that show is running out of road fast. And I think the EU technocrats don't really have any real plan looking forward beyond it. As for the Salvinis, the Orbans, the Kaczynskis, all of these people, of course they will be emboldened by this decline in Merkel's fortunes, because from their point of view, Germany is the country that is always there at the centre of the EU, supporting the EU project, making it possible, sidelining people like Salvini and Orban, and orchestrating the pressure on them. If that German pressure weakens, then of course Salvini and Orban become stronger. And besides, they see that the momentum in Europe, not just in their own countries, but in Germany as well, the popular momentum is behind them. So, of course, they will be emboldened by this election.
All right, Alexander, let's take another stab at it. How much time do you give Angela Merkel?
Well, I said just recently that I thought she'd be gone around the new year. I still do. The next move is that there's going to be elections in the state of Hessen, which is one where the CDU party, Merkel's own party, stays. We will see what happens there. And then there is a conference by the CDU in, I believe, November. And that, I suspect, is where opposition to her is going to crystallize. It really depends a great deal on what the CDU itself does. If they finally understand that the penny has dropped, if the penny drops to them, and they understand that as they're losing contact now with the German electorate, then I think that, they're politicians at the end of the day. They're not going to cling on to somebody who is just pulling them down. And I think they will let her go. And I think what will happen is that some of the German, the CDU leaders will come along to Merkel and will say to her, look, it's over. You've got to go. Let's see whether we can find you a cushy job somewhere outside Germany, the United Nations or the EU or wherever. But your position as Chancellor is now exhausted, and the time has come for us to move on. So I think that will probably happen at some point over the next couple of months. But as you say, I've underestimated Merkel's resilience in the past. I have greatly underestimated the bloody-mindedness and denseness of the German political establishment. But I think when they look at the reality they are facing now, I think that the point has probably been reached when they can't escape it any longer.
Yeah, it seems that the German public and the citizens are sending a very clear message to the ruling coalition.
Absolutely. And I think one point to make also about these elections in Bavaria was that, of course, the turnout was very high. So, people are feeling very strongly about this. And it is clear that they don't want Merkel around anymore. She is crystallizing. She is the point at which all disaffection in Germany is now crystallizing around. She is the person the German people no longer want. I was in Germany a couple of months ago, and it struck me how even people who had previously supported her now feel that her time is up and that she should go, and are becoming increasingly exasperated by the way that she clings on.
Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on the notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. And visit the Duran shop, pick up a t-shirt, help support the Duran. And in the description box down below, you'll find links to our PayPal and our Patreon pages. Please donate to the Duran. It really helps us out a lot. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Until next time, take care.